Foreigners are committing loads of sex crimes in Britain and the establishment can't cover it up anymore. Foreigners were convicted of a quarter of all sex crimes in Britain last year. New stats show 15% of sexual offences, including rape, were accounted for by foreign nationals between 2021 and 2023. A further 8% of convictions were recorded as unknown nationalities. Well, they're not British then, are they? So foreign nationals, of course, make up just 9.3% of the population. So yet again, they are overrepresented. Now, today, this happened. An Afghan asylum seeker was found guilty of raping a 15-year-old schoolgirl in Scotland. He doesn't accept that he's done anything wrong. And he claimed that in his home country, child marriage was common. So he might have got a bit confused. Well, shock horror, we import people from countries with very different values to us. Countries where women have no rights, and then those people rape schoolgirls because they don't think there's anything wrong with it. Look, we've all been saying this is happening. Here's some more stats for you. Foreign nationals are 3 times as likely to commit sexual offences as Brits. This week, this was revealed.
Secondly, Baroness Casey reports that she came across cases involving suspects who were asylum seekers. We have asked her team to provide to the Home Office all the evidence that they found, so the immigration enforcement can immediately pursue individual cases with the police.
So it looks like asylum seekers are involved in grooming gangs as well. Then this week, this also happened.
And on the key issues of ethnicity that I'd asked her to examine, they identify clear evidence of over-representation among suspects of Asian and Pakistani heritage men. And she refers to examples of organisations avoiding the topic altogether for fear of appearing racist or raising community tensions.
No. So, hang on, you're telling me that Pakistanis are overrepresented in the rape gangs? Gosh. All these things that we were told weren't true. And it turns out they are, aren't they? And they can't hide it anymore, which is why stuff like this is happening. The Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has called for reform to the ECHR now because, well, we can't deport people without reform. So we need reform now, do we? The Prime Minister now wants to block visas from countries that refuse to take back illegal immigrants. The people who are now in government are the same people who were calling us all racist for saying that foreigners were disproportionately committing sex offences in Britain. Well, there we go. And do we really trust them to sort it out now? Let's get towards my panel. We have got Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got Tory MP Esther McVeigh and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Yeah, Mark, so basically this week alone, in fact, it's only Wednesday, isn't it? So far, in the last 3 days, we've now been given a load of stats that show that we were basically right all along.
Yeah, conclusive proof.
Yeah.
Look, I think there is this rather touching but unbelievably naive liberal fantasy that all cohorts, all cultures, all nationalities behave in exactly the same way. And they don't. Some cultures, some nationalities, we can see from these statistics, this particularly about sex crimes, have a much higher propensity to commit those crimes. Just a fact. And you can speculate on the causes of that, what the cultural sort of backdrop is to that might encourage it, but it is a fact. And I would have thought that if you could therefore derive from that our approach and policy to immigration should be different to different cohorts. That if, for example, you're from one of these nationalities that seem to have a high propensity to commit crime, well, then perhaps the criteria for getting in are a bit harder than it would be from a country with a low criteria. By the way, you might apply the same thing to gender, I should say. I bet nearly all of these crimes have been committed by men, virtually none by women. But nevertheless, I think you can have different strokes for different folks. And that, however, cuts to the quick of this liberal internationalist fantasy.
One of the things we were especially told that wasn't happening was the idea that in some cultures, like in Afghanistan, women, or girls, as it turns out, are just property. Really, and that we were told, oh, no, that won't happen over here. Well, it has happened now. It's happened explicitly in the case today in Scotland where a fully grown Afghan man raped a 15-year-old schoolgirl and then basically said he didn't think he'd done anything wrong and that back home that would have been all right. So we've imported these kind of problems again, haven't we, there?
You have. You've got cultural differences. People didn't want to talk about that before. And we know in different cultures, different countries, women aren't equal. They're not treated, women don't have the rights that they have here, and they've been, as you say, treated as property. I think that wall of denial, that make-believe, is finally crumbling. In fact, that's one thing that Baroness Casey said. Denial was rife everywhere, in charities, in the political establishment, in courts, in prosecutions, and actually, thank goodness, the scales have fallen from people's eyes, and we can now analyse it. It was Dominic Raab, not so long ago, wanted to start doing this sort of data on nationality, and everybody called him a racist, and he couldn't do it, and he didn't. And we as the Conservative Party then didn't have the strength to fight that cause through. But I think times have changed rapidly.
Well, they have, and OK, if the right thing gets done in the end, then fair enough. But there's a load of people on those Labour benches, Nina, who will have been calling everyone racist for daring to use the term Pakistani rape gangs, even though that's a thing, who would have been called racist for pointing out that maybe that hotel full of Afghan men might lead to some of the local schoolgirls being harassed, or that foreign men are statistically more likely to rape and commit sexual assaults than Brits. Well, they're in power now, the facts are out, and they need to do something about it. How can we trust them?
They are. Well, remember that it was actually Keir Starmer, the much maligned Keir Starmer, who called for Baroness Casey to do this review. He asked her to do it in January.
Yeah. So it's because at the time she didn't actually, and he didn't think she was going to say have a national inquiry. She's actually said during the course of doing this, she changed her mind.
He has taken exactly what she said. He didn't have to call for her to do a review in January.
He wasn't expecting that conclusion, though, was he?
Never mind whether he expected it or not. You asked what he's going to do. He is following what she's said. And Esther, you say, we didn't have the strength. So we had 14 years where the Tories did sod all, basically, about A, the grooming gangs, B, the nationality breakdown. And so it's...
Well, actually, can I just stop you right there? Because Rishi Sunak brought in the task force that protected 4,000 young girls and actually arrested and prosecuted over 800 men. So you're talking rubbish there. Let's just put that into context.
Before Rishi said, I'm talking about between 2010 and...
Nina, you're right. The last Conservative government... Nina, you are right. You are right. The last Conservative government, I agree with you, was far too politically correct. I'm glad we're on the same page there.
OK.
The thing is, this comes from lack of integration. This, you talk about...
It's not integration.
But everyone was called racist for pointing that out.
No.
Near where I grew up, you could see it happening. You could see it happening all around you, and you weren't allowed to say anything about it.
When there's a lack of integration. And
it's not integration.
But you
isn't
need
integration. It's education. It's different cultures.
Education. With integration comes education.
But
if you get pockets of races with their own culture and with their own habits and their own language and not learning English, that is completely wrong.
People didn't want to admit there were cultural differences.
Exactly right.
And the truth is there is, but they didn't want to admit it.
And we've imported a lot of people who think that young white girls are at the bottom of the chain, don't we?
Exactly right. We have imported crime. There's no two ways about it.
I mean, put it this way.
It's proof positive in these numbers.
Look, it was only last week when I think it was Tim Montgomery wanted to have a national inquiry into the rape gangs. And what did the Labour front bench? They called it was a dog whistle. Shouldn't be doing a far-right bang. It's literally been in the last couple of days that Keir Starmer has been forced into a U-turn. He didn't know he was doing it. He didn't want to. That's why he hasn't said anything. He's been out the country.
Surely now, Mark, surely this has to be part of the conversation now when we're talking about legal immigration and asylum and everything that's coming across the channel. We have to have this conversation about sexual assaults and whether or not actually does this not make it even more of a national emergency now?
Yes, and as I say, I think we've got to have the courage to treat different cohorts differently. Is that straightforward? And as I say, the sort of universal human rights, liberal utopia, you can't possibly contemplate that. But the reality, the facts, show you have to. Different cohorts, different nationalities, possibly different genders, need to be treated differently because of the risk.
I also like to point out, these are male crimes. These are not female crimes.
Yeah. And men should be treated differently to women, probably.
Grooming gangs, these girls were let down because they were regarded as little slags, basically, by everyone. And that comes from school teachers, from social workers to the police and everything. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong.
That.
And you we have to take that.
Well, then added into that, I will add into that, there was a class difference there. These girls were white, working class,
yeah.
and they thought, they
snobbery.
can't. Exactly, there was all kinds that went into that. And
down.
who then was the lowest of the low was white working class girls.
But is this not the end of this fantasy of
It should be.
multiculturalism?
I think it is. It should be.
Now when someone goes, diversity is our greatest strength, whether it's the Metropolitan Police releasing that statement or Sadiq Khan releasing that statement.
Charles.
Or King Charles.
They're all wrong.
Exactly. Well, King Charles doesn't have to come into contact with that much diversity, does he?
Stay out of politics.
He doesn't live a huge distance away from Edgware Road. Maybe he'd do well to walk up and down it every now and again. But the police to say, hang on a second, Nina, for the police to say diversity is our greatest strength, and we've got the crime stats out that prove that it isn't, they need to stop saying it, don't
The
they?
point is, these people are already here. You cannot actually.
If only there was a solution.
There has to be.
I would say,
there has to.
Thank goodness
we have to work and make it work. You can't just say.
Nina, for the first time, people have now said there are cultural differences. Let's seize the moment, right? Let's put the steps in place. These people cannot keep coming into the country. You do need Rwanda, you need a deterrent, you need to stop it. And the people who are here, I tell you, prosecute them and get rid of them.
You cannot deport hundreds of thousands of people.
You start deporting foreign nationals when they've committed a crime.
Deport.
What I would also like to point out,
Patrick, your point, I think, is bang on right. It is, anyone who says diversity is our greatest strength is simply wrong. You might like diversity, you may consider it one feature of the UK that you like, but to seriously believe diversity is the greatest strength we have in the UK is nonsense.
From these ghastly facts that the whole of society is.
You can extrapolate out the truth now. We've now got the facts. This is logical. They are the truth.
What I'd like to point out also is, while we're concentrating this, what I want to point out that the percentage of rape convictions in this country is absolutely scandalous. It is 2%. Which is just horrendous, and that's something. And besides
this means the figures could be worse.
We are breeding our own generation of rapists, while parents have lost control of their children through social media. Young boys are being exposed to porn and growing up with values that Andrew Tate espouses. So we are.
But Nina, all of those are problems, but they're different problems. What this report shows is foreign nationals are twice as likely as Brits to commit these crimes.
We are breeding a generation of young British boys
who will
have the same attitudes as foreign.
Where's the feminism?
Nina, all I want to say is you can have both of these things can be true. Let's not merge them.
But seriously, come on. Why are feminists so quiet about this? Where are they? Because they are. I think they are, because I think for them they keep quiet about it because actually being pro-multiculturalism is more important than being feminist. These stats of rape against women and girls are devastating. Where are all the left-wing feminists? Where are they?
There is a priority of political correctness of what you can say, what you can't, where you place people. And for a long period of time, you're quite right, all of these sort of left-wing sort of liberal elite did not want to talk about this. What I'm saying now is...
left-wing, right-wing did it too.
No, to be fair, no, they didn't. So what they got called, Nina, and they were until last week, they were not... They were called far right. They were extremists. They were racist. They were...
And many of them are.
Well, that's exactly why people weren't saying it. You've absolutely just let yourself down there, Nina. You have.
There are many of them who are far right.
No, they're not.
That wasn't the claim, though, Nina, was it? That was not the Prime Minister's claim. The Prime Minister's claim was that people calling for a national inquiry were jumping on a far-right bandwagon. That was his
politicians.
Claim. But it's outrageous.
Absolutely.
They're not jumping on a far-right bandwagon. They're calling for a national inquiry. Thank God that Keir Starmer has now got on this bandwagon himself.
Thankfully, Baroness Casey has now agreed, caught him by surprise and agreed with it. So obviously she's not far right, is she?
She's not far right, I think it's fair to say.
He instantly took exactly what she said. You can't just say
instantly, but begrudgingly when it's suspected.
You can't just say
quickly,
the Tories are perfect and
nobody said that.
right wing are correct and left wing is wrong. That's exactly what you're saying.
We did not say the Tories are perfect, did we, Nina?
We've got to go, I'm afraid. Right, thank you very much.